So I'm accountability with my health when I do the stuff I'm supposed to do. When I was at the gym this morning with my trainer and I ate the right things this morning, I'm accountable to myself with that. But I'm also accountable to my family because I need to be healthier longer because I have a brand new son. Like I need to live to be 100 so he gets to enjoy his dad. So I think it's when to own it, you really have to be accountable in different categories of your life and understand the accountability is not just to you, it's to the people you care about.
This is the Own It Show, where we tell stories of how everyday people made ownership theirs.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Own It Show. I'm your host, Justin Rothling-Schofer, and if you're new here, congratulations, you found us. It is so good to see you, so good to have you. And we tell stories of people who have made ownership theirs. There's over 280 different podcasts that you can choose from over the past 3 years. And at the end of the day, we just aim to influence, empower, educate, and really help you take ownership of your life so that you can realize your God-given potential. If there's anything that's ever been something that's moved you, something that's changed your life, something that's impacted you, I'd love if you dropped us a review. I'd love if you left us a little note and just shared it with someone you love, because that's the only way that we reach people at the level in which we desire. And so I am so excited about our guest today because Chris and I actually met, and again, we know nothing's random, but Chris and I actually met about 6 months ago at a speaking engagement that he was at, and I was there visiting John Gordon, and his coach, I believe, was speaking. Ben Newman and John knew each other, and so they connected the four of us together, and it was just so cool to see how it organically works. And then, lo and behold, I realized that he's also a Wiley brother, basically getting his book published through Wiley. I'm published through Wiley. So as soon as we knew that, we had that in common, I was like, oh my gosh, I got to have this guy on. And so the uniqueness of Chris's story of taking ownership of your life and not being bound by circumstance, not being bound by situation, not being bound by tough breaks, but rather leaning in and seeing the gratitude in things, seeing the greatness in things, seeing the opportunity in things, and taking action. I just can't tell you how much you've influenced my life and my mindset in the way that I show up and I approach things. So Chris, it's been so cool to just get to know you. I know you're a performance coach. You touch thousands of people and impact people in a big, big way. You're an author. You're coming out with One Jordan, which we're going to talk about today. Guys, you are just going to be floored when you hear this story. It's amazing. I'm so excited. If you, I'll drop the link in the bio so you can get access to it. But speaking and hosting a podcast and just influencing people all around. And so, Chris, it is so great to have you on, and just thank you for spending time with us.
Thanks, Justin. My pleasure. It's my pleasure. It's crazy how our paths crossed, and it crossed because of One Jordan. Like literally, like I met Ben Newman originally because of One Jordan. And I did the same with John Gordon, kind of rhymes a little bit with John Gordon. And then we get an introduction backstage at an event. So the way this whole book has worked has been, it blew my mind, the strategy, right? Like I knew that I could connect with people by taking one Jordan shoe, sending a handwritten note that says, please accept the shoe as a gift. If you want the other shoe, give me a call. So I tested it, right? Like I sent it out to Ben Newman was my second. Damon West was the first person that ever responded. Damon and I are we're really close friends now. We talk a couple times a week, and Ben has become my mentor, my coach, and my friend because of sending this One Jordan shoe. And after that happened, I decided to write a book. I'm like, I think that I want to do as many of these as I can and put some stories together and show people how to network at a super high level with something that is unique, right? That's unique and a bold statement. So that's how we got the book, and that's how today's February 27th when we're recording this. And if you hear a little bit of shakiness in my voice, it's because we're releasing the book at 7:00 tonight, and then you really find out what's going to happen, right?
I love it. It's so, so great. I'd love for you just to give a little bit of context as to your story, Chris. Just you as an individual, you as a human, kind of how you've come up and gotten to this point, because there's a couple of things that I want to talk about as we dive deeper, I want to talk about the difference between networking and connecting. There's a massive difference to me between networking and connecting. And what you're doing is you're connecting. You're connecting with people because you're ultimately creating this personalization to what you're doing and a deep level of connection. You're not sending out 400 emails saying, hey, we'd love to connect with you. You're actually getting a shoe. Like, you're literally going and paying with your own money to grab a pair of Jordans that you hold one back. You get this person, you've sought after, you've managed to get this person's address, whether it's their office, whether it's their home, whether it's whatever, putting a personalized note in there that I'm sure has a whole bunch of research on that individual, has a whole bunch of personal things that connects with them, which I want to hear about in a second. And then you send it off to them. And then you give them your personal number. Like, that is truly connecting. And so I want to dive down that road.
One thing you left out, Justin, you have to get their shoe size too, which is always an awkward question.
That is right. That is right.
Like, that is probably the most awkward part of it. If you can you see the 3 Jordans behind me on camera there? You see those? Okay, so this one right here is going to Sal Frisella, who's the CEO of First Form, right? That one in the middle was sent to John Maxwell 2 weeks ago. And then the one on the end is going to a guy named Neil Dingra, who owns a company called Forward Academy. But I had to get their shoe sizes. That's that's the tough part sometimes. So I met John at lunch back in November and at this event, and I got to go up and talk to him. And I said, hey, John, what's your shoe size? He looked at me. He's like, size 11. I said, thanks, man. I appreciate it. That's it. And so I get it personally sometimes, but sometimes I have to go through an assistant to get to somebody else. Ben got me a shoe size for Sal. I had to get Ben's shoe size from his assistant. So that's the tough part, is the shoe size. Is figuring out what what the shoe size is. But a little more about me. So look, I'm a son of a drug addict. I was a college dropout, and I'm a survivor of infant loss. And when I look at all the things that I've been able to overcome through my life, besides being born with a limb difference, which is my brand, obviously one hand at a time, I feel that God put me in the position I am today because of the way I performed to get through everything that I've been through in my life. Like, I'm in this rare air, is what I would consider, doing what I love, making a living at it, changing people's lives and impacting them because of the things I was able to survive along the way. Right. And I feel that I have a responsibility to help the people I was 5, 10, 15 years ago. And when I realized that, my life changed. I pivoted. I was sitting on my back deck. I was opening up my journal. We had lost our son in 2020, CJ. He passed away from cardiomyopathy, hyperplasia. And I went into a dark spot for about 8 months. I lost touch with everybody. We wouldn't let visitors come over. I mean, it was a really challenging time. And about 8 months in, on a Sunday morning, I'm sitting out back on the lanai, and I open up my journal. And I start reading through the journal because, see, I'd taken all these notes and put everything in this journal that was about the things I was going to do with my son. All the things I was so excited of the things we were going to do. And I started reading it. And then I thought to myself, he's watching me. He's watching what's going on. CJ sees what I'm doing, and he's probably not real proud of me right now. So at that moment, I decided it was time for me to share my story and be more open about the way I grew up, the challenges of being raised by a drug addict, and then what's gone through with the infant loss later in life. Because there's people that need to hear it. There's people that need to hear that voice from an average guy like me that's been able to get through these things, right? I have a tattoo on my arm. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it says CJ is watching. And that's my burn. I look at that every morning when I get up. If I have challenges throughout the day, Justin, I look down at my arm and I know that he is watching me. I got to be honest, for that 8-month period, my relationship with God was not very good because I couldn't understand how my God would put me through that. Right? How my God would let this poor kid not make it. And then when I became at peace with it, I had a responsibility that I needed to change my life and the trajectory and be as impactful as possible. I mean, the last 2 years, my word has been impact, and it will continue to be impact, because when I get up every day, I want to make a positive impact on everybody I touch.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Even as you tell that story, there's something that you just said is like CJ is watching, like that's just so powerful, knowing that the decisions we're making, the things you're actively choosing, even on a day that it doesn't feel great, the one that you lost, the one that was so close to you is watching. And you said something else, is CJ wouldn't be very proud of where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people can resonate with that. There's been loss in everybody's life of something or someone. And whether it was a relationship, whether it was a child, whether it was a parent, whether it was a brother, a sister, a best friend, is knowing that, hey, you have the gift of air in your lungs and ground under your feet, that you can go and change your outcome. You can change your circumstance today. And when you tell the story, I see so much of Job in you. I don't know if you're familiar with the story of Job, but just this faithful servant, this faithful warrior of God. And ultimately, he stripped everything away because Satan just goes, hey, he worships you. He loves you. He's great because he's got everything going for him. And he's like, test him. And as you've gone through this test, you've come out just like Job on the other side, just glorying and glorifying and happy and excited and still worshiping and still having him at your core. And it ultimately is culminating in a lot of blessings that are coming out of this because you've just stayed faithful. And I think a lot of people listening to this right now need to hear that word. They need to hear this word, that no matter how hard it gets, no matter how hard something is, no matter how depth in the valley you are, continue to keep coming back to that level of faith and knowing that this is shaping you, knowing that it's refining you, knowing that it's setting you up. And if you stay faithful, you will be rewarded for it on the other side.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And as we're recording this, you can't hear this, but I can hear in the background of my house my 11-week-old son. And my wife is in there playing with him in the other room. So almost 4 years later, after CJ passed, we were blessed with Leo Christopher, his little brother. And he is incredibly healthy, and has just got a great demeanor. He is just a blessing like you wouldn't believe. And I can hear him playing in the other room right now. Right now is his playtime every day. My wife and him play a little bit. So it would have been easy to give up and not try. It would have been easy to go the other way, take the path of least resistance and go down a rabbit hole and not become the person that God wanted me to be. And when I see, look, I'm 51 years old, right? So I can look back at times in my life, Justin, and I can say, I had opportunities to do this before. These things were presented to me before, but I did not recognize them as that opportunity. Okay. Yep. I've had this uncanny ability to be a high level performer when it comes to sales and business. I've always been the top 1% in any industry I've ever been in. But I would always figure out a way to sabotage that in the end by not doing the good things I'm supposed to do along the way. And now
hold on on that. That's a big statement. And I hope that rocks a lot of people. Go down that road for a second, because you've been a top end performer and getting results that top end level people are wanting and ultimately desiring. But yet you said you hadn't been doing the things that were necessary in order to, and establishing the habits.
Yeah.
Walk me through this a little bit.
Well, I can tell you from the start. So I was 28 or 29 the first time I made $1 million. And again, I would be what some consider an uneducated guy. I dropped out of college after my freshman year. And what happened was, when I started making all that money, I lost sight of what I did to get there. I lost sight of being nice to people, putting in the work every day and understanding it, because I had these goals of, if I could just build this big house, make $1 million in a year, have all the Rolex watches I wanted and anything else, then I'm there. And when I got there, I just stopped working. I stopped doing the things that got me there. Ben talks a lot about being seduced by success. I was seduced by success. I mean, think about it. The son of a drug addict, right? Who grew up not knowing what was going to happen through the majority of his life, is now living in a community where everybody's doctors and lawyers and have all these initials after their name. My house is the biggest one in the neighborhood, right? I look like I should be on MTV Cribs. I have 5 automobiles out front. Like, I didn't know what to do next, but to just lay back and relax, because I thought that was the finish line. I didn't realize that I had a responsibility to keep working for my family and everybody else that relied on me, but also to the people that were like me. Like, I look at it now, I'm like, gosh, I could have helped so many people back then by showing how I got to where I did and understanding that. And look, things just got sideways from there a few times. And I had a marriage that failed about 14 years ago. And I've been with my wife now for 12 years. And she turned my life around. As far as making me realize that I deserved better than what I was treating myself. And look,
That's good.
That's a tough thing to say, like, a tough thing to realize, that when you're raised in that state of not knowing if mom's going to be high or not knowing if the electric bill is going to be paid or not knowing any of those things, right? You settle, right? So I settled for relationships along the way, and I thought I should have been treated a certain way. I thought that's how you get treated, right? That's what you deserve to be treated like. And then when I sat down and I really got clarity on how I wanted to live the rest of my life. And 2 years later, I met my wife. I went into a doctor's office to have 2 warts removed off my hand, and in came this beautiful woman to remove them. And I called the office later that day and asked if she was single, and ended up having a conversation with her and asked her on a date. And the rest is history. And and she's so far out of my league, Justin. I know this isn't exactly dialed in on the book, but I think it's just something I needed to share, that she's so far out of my league on what I thought I deserved. And now I'm in this wonderful relationship with her, and have been for a very long time. I feel now that it's important to share this story with people, right? Like, people need to hear that. Don't settle. Like, don't settle for what everybody else says you deserve. Go after what you want. I mean, and what you feel is the relationship you need to be in.
It's so good. And I would also bet that what you had to do in order to get to that point was you also had to prepare yourself. You had to prepare yourself differently than what you were doing previously. So
I'll tell you a story about that. This goes right in it. Well, the first thing, and this goes into what I know you believe in wholeheartedly, is that the first thing I did is when I realized that I needed to turn my life around after my divorce, is I really got in charge of my fitness. And I started eating right and working out and understanding habits and living that lifestyle, which in turn gave me confidence to step outside of my comfort zone and ask someone like her out. But the day that I left my number for her to call me, she calls my number. I'm at work. I know it's her. I can tell the number where it's coming from. So I let it go to voicemail. I wasn't ready yet, because what I did was I grabbed one of my sales guys that was working for me, and we went to an office and we role played, because I had to prepare myself for her to say, no, I don't date patients. I don't do this. I don't do that. So I said, say this and so we have objection handle role played for the conversation, because I'm a sales guy, right? So I wanted to make sure I didn't just go, right? So I asked her out. I first asked her if she was single, and then I asked her that said, hey, would you like to grab dinner? And then, Justin, she said yes. And I didn't know what to do, because I prepared myself for like 6 no's, right? Like, but she said yes. So
it's so amazing. And I say this often, is what you're praying for is so far less than what you're actually called for. But what you're praying for, you're not yet prepared for.
Yeah.
And so being able to realize that you have to prepare yourself differently, knowing that you have to prepare yourself for what's already prepared for you, and being able to choose something different is literally what you did, is literally what you've done. And it's a testament to how you live and how you show up. And again, guys, I don't want you to miss this. Like, there was so much gold dropped in the last 5 minutes here, but don't settle. Don't settle for what it is that you think you deserve. Don't settle for the safe way out. Don't settle for what it is that you think you've made it, because the moment you think you made it is the moment that you lost. And you have to continue to show up every day and put the work in, because when you continue to put the work in, that's when you ultimately start thriving and start moving forward and go from a place of survival to thriving. The other thing I want to make mention here is that, and hopefully this resonates with a lot of you, is a lot of you have put up false peaks, false pinnacles, artificial finish lines where you're like, man, I'm going to lose 20 pounds and life's going to be good. Or, man, I'm going to make $1 million and life's going to be good. I'm going to buy that house. Life's going to be good. I'm going to get married. Life's going to be good. Life doesn't have a finish line, friends. The finish line happens when you're 6 feet under and you get to go sit at the right hand of God and say, hey, how did I do? And so you have to keep running your race every single day, just like Chris realized, just like Chris learned, so that as he continued to step up, as he continued to show up, he continued to realize further blessings, further opportunities, and further things that he knew he was prepared and called for. And so I just think that's so good, Chris, because again, you settled for everything. And I want to talk about something you mentioned here, was settling for relationships. Dive into that for me a little bit as to what you mean by settling for relationships.
Yeah, I think that I settled for someone that I felt was paying attention to me. And part of that goes back to, I didn't have a lot of confidence when it came to dating or asking girls out because of my arm, which is crazy to hear me say that today. But as a kid, you don't want to be different, right? But as an adult, being different is the best way to be. Well, I didn't have the confidence to ask out the people that I wanted to ask out. So when someone showed me attention, I felt like that's all that I deserved. So that's what I mean by settling for a relationship. And then I think that a lot of times we settle along the way. And I ask myself, friends, like I have friends that'll come to me that maybe having a challenging relationship. And I always ask this question. I'm like, if you met your spouse today, would you still marry her? If you met your spouse today, would you still marry him? And my question is, yeah, 1,000 times over. But if your answer is no, then you need to go back and figure out what to do to get back to that yes stage. And, and a lot of people they settle, right? They settle. Well, it's, hey, every Saturday we go to Home Depot or whatever, this is what we do. We don't do date night anymore and we just, whatever. And I think when we stop dating our spouse, game over, just game over.
Yeah.
No.
Totally get it. And guys, there's just stuff that you say, Chris, that just like starts to drive my mind. And listeners, if this is your first podcast, go back and listen to a few of the ones previous, because I talk about the concept of different. I talk about the concept of owning your different, because your different is your uniqueness and your uniqueness is your gift. And Chris just said being different as a kid is hard, but being different as an adult is what separates you. And if we can find that point earlier in life, if we can find out what makes us different, what makes us unique, and embrace that and love that and lean into that, man, it's going to just take us so much further. Because think about God looking down at you going, man, Chris, I created you this way on purpose. Mm-hmm. I created you this way for a reason. And stop being ashamed of what our different is, whether it's a limb that doesn't look like others, whether it's a blemish on your face that doesn't look like others, whether it's a personality that isn't like others, whether it's a specific skill set that maybe is a little embarrassing that you are shying or hiding away. He wants to shine light on that thing. He wants to use that to ultimately empower others and create some changes. And so that is just so beautiful, because you've taken this thing that once was something that caused you to hide, just like almost, and I'm kind of seeing this whole story play out, caused you to hide, and then losing your son almost made CJ pull you out of hiding and now have
Yeah.
relationships on purpose. Coming back to now what this One Jordan book is all about, which is literally creating relationships on purpose, and not just networking in order to climb the ladder and get something back, but to know I really want to create relationship with this person on purpose. I want to connect with this person on purpose, and doing that through the One Jordan.
Yeah, I mean, so when you talked about a minute earlier on networking and connecting difference, the book is actually titled One Jordan, How to Connect with High Performers. So I really came down to defining my list. And inside the book, there's a QR code that everyone can scan, and it'll help them create their Jordan list. Like if they wanted to do the same thing, whether it was a Jordan or whatever it is. I chose the Jordan shoe because if you can tell, I'm a big Jordan collector. There's a bunch on the wall behind me. It's such an iconic brand, right? It transcends generations to the point I'm 51. I have way more pairs than I would disclose on the air. And my son, who is 11 weeks old, he's got like 4 or 5 pair already, right? So like, think about that. That's a 50-year gap, and it's still, people wear it. When you see me speak at events, I always wear Jordans with my suits. That's my brand. That's who I am, right? So what a better way to connect than utilize that shoe that most people know what it is, right? And then I had to define that list. And Damon West was the first one. Great connection. Damon and I are, I mean, like I said, I talk to Damon regularly. I mean, we just hit it off. And I put Damon on my list because I heard him on the Ed Milat podcast. And I was like, I got to connect with this guy. How can I do that? Ben Newman was somebody I had been following for a few years. I said, how can I connect with Ben Newman? I did that. Right. And then Ben Newman was able to get the shoe size for John Gordon. So I sent a shoe to John Gordon, and I was texting with John yesterday about the book release. Like, Chris Welton, son of a drug addict, college dropout, texts John Gordon. Like, I have John Gordon's number in my phone. Like that's crazy that I think about that, because I decided to send one shoe to start a relationship. And it's been amazing what I've been able to do so far. Clinton Sparks. I don't know if anybody knows who Clinton Sparks is, but if you don't, his tagline's get familiar. So get familiar. He has produced over 80 million albums that have been sold. 80 million. I mean, that's unreal. But I won Jordan to Clinton Sparks. I can call Clinton right now and get him on the phone. Like, we connected. We built a friendship because I sent one shoe, right? Now, the difference with what a lot of people will do is they'll send the shoe and go, hey, they called me. Okay, now what?
Yeah.
Now what? So I've been able to push that. David Meltzer, I was on his IG Live yesterday morning because I sent David Meltzer one Jordan. If you see David Meltzer on any Instagram post on TV or anything he does from his home studio, the Jordan is sitting behind him on the wall that I sent him. Like, it's right there. So I connected with him. I was on his IG Live because I sent the one Jordan. Now, there have been some people that haven't responded yet. My guy, Ed Milet, hasn't responded yet. I did ask him his shoe size in person in Las Vegas back in October. He looked at me really weird, like told me my size, and I sent it to him. I know that he's got it because I talked to his assistant, which is his sister. We'll see what happens. Lewis House sent me the shoe back, said he was not interested. So, hey, at least I got the shoe back. I can do it again, right? Dan Martell did send the shoe back, but Dan still did a call with me. He said he just doesn't wear Jordans. Don't worry about it. He sent the shoe back, and he did a call with me, and I still wrote a whole chapter on him in my book. So it's been pretty successful to connect with those people, but then it's about, what are you going to do next? What are you going to do next? Right.
And that's a great question. And it all comes back, to be honest with you, is intention. Is what is your intention? And I think the difference between networking and connecting is your intention. Mm-hmm. To network is to get something. To connect is to give something. And when you can show up with a desire to give, it allows you to move forward in such a powerful way. And the best way that I can define who I would want to build a relationship with, or who I want to connect with, is who will benefit that I haven't met yet from the two of us connecting.
Love it.
And that's a question I always ask myself. So with Chris Welton and I connecting, who is going to benefit that I haven't met yet?
Mhm.
I know there's a lot of things that we can do that when I send out your book to our email list, that when people read this book, it's going to impact them. I don't know who it is. I don't know who it is yet, but I know it's going to benefit somebody. So that is the benefit of us connecting. I don't know who's going to listen to this podcast and immediately going to be moved, but that's why we're connecting. I don't know what opportunity it is going to have you on our stage or connect you with somebody else that can get you on a stage or vice versa, but those people will benefit because that's the message that's inside Chris and that's the message that's here. And that is always my barometer for ultimately ending up connecting with somebody is who that I have yet to meet will benefit from the two of us connecting.
I love that. I mean, I yeah, I mean, that's magic, man. I mean, that is thinking about things that way when you connect with people takes it to a whole nother level, right? Because too many people are thinking about what can they do for me, right?
Totally.
What can they do for me? And here's one of the cool things. John Maxwell, obviously, people that follow you, listen to you, I'm sure they love John Maxwell, right? I mean, I would say that falls into the same kind of category. So John loves to ask you this question, and he'll ask you, he'll look at you and he'll say, Justin, who do you know that I should know? John Maxwell asks you, who do you like that's think about that. What's he written? 90 best-selling books. Yes. I know what we paid him to speak at this event I was part of in last year. And he flew there in his private jet because we asked him if he could stay longer. I said, when's your flight leave? He goes, my flight leaves when I tell the pilot to leave. I'm like, oh, we're good. We're good. But he asked that question. Who do you know that I should know? Why do we stop? Why does the average person stop asking that question? Right? And what can I do for you? Like, what can I do? Like, what can I do right now to help Justin? You know, and when you come from that place, it just brings good to you, and people understand that that's the kind of person you are. You're not in it just for that, right? Just for yourself.
Yeah. 100%. And what I love about that, Chris, is like, we've obviously met each other in person a few times and crossed paths for about 10 minutes
So
at Amberley Lagos when we were getting that podcast done. And it's you just breathe that, you know what I mean, is being able to know, hey, how can I impact you? How can I support you? How can I show up for you? And when you start to get around people and you create a little tribe of people that are wondering, how can I benefit you? Meaning, how can I benefit the other 7 or 8 people in my inner circle? You know, and this is not why it happens, but you know for a fact that those people are having thousands of conversations with other people, and they have you at the forefront of their mind as well. How could this potentially benefit Justin? How could I ultimately set this person up? How could I need to make this connection. And I can't tell you how many great things in my life have occurred simply because I developed great relationships. Yeah. Everything positive in my life has developed because I've developed and learned how to build great relationships. And once we understand that people are the key to life, people are the key to joy, people are the key to success in many ways, and it's not transactional, but it's deep relationship, that is when life changes. That is when life changes, because you never go into a relationship wanting something. You want to go into a relationship giving and serving. And when that is your heart posture, there's a far difference between, I think it's become so cool and cliche to say, oh, what can I do for you? Or how can I serve you? No. Don't ask me how you can serve me. Come in knowing who I am, knowing what my desires are, knowing what my mission is, knowing what God's put on my heart, understanding who I am, genuinely wanting to get to know who I am, and then serving me. Maybe not on that moment, but ultimately the fact that it's a week, a month, a year later, and you consistently have that person pop into your mind and you serve them by sending them a connection, by connecting them with somebody, by buying their book, by throwing something out for them, by putting them on a podcast, getting them on a stage, something serving their kids, serving their family. Like, what can you do? Because that is where the interest level lies. And that's why, Chris, when you look at my relationship index, my inner circle is pretty small because I can't build really good relationships with thousands of people. That would be inauthentic. You can build really great relationships with about 20 to 30.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that one of the things that comes to mind is relationship capital. And I want to break that down. And for me, I'm always looking at a way to get people introductions to someone else. Like that's like, and it's not a capital as in it's going in the bank capital. It's just building stronger relationships, right?
Totally.
When I refer somebody to somebody that I trust, what that tells them is that I'm thinking about them, right? Both parties. I'm thinking about you.
Yep.
Right. And I care about you. And that's a lost art in my opinion. Right. It's a lost.
100%.
I introduce someone like, I'll give you an example. I won't use the names, but I've got a friend of mine. Well, I have several friends of mine that are entrepreneurs that operate at a super high level, right? Like own a bunch of doors, real estate, big contracting companies. And then I meet these guys out in Las Vegas recently that were tax specialists and had dinner with them. So the first thing I was thinking about is, okay, these guys are legit because I know people they know, like in my community, they knew people that I knew. Who can I help with this information they just gave me? So I just started getting on my phone and text message and doing introductions for people. And I think last count, I've introduced 7 high-end entrepreneurs to these guys, and they've all went into business with them to help with their tax strategies. This isn't about Chris Welton making $1. That's not it at all. It's about letting them know I care about them and I want them to continue to flourish and grow. And I appreciate what these guys do over here and the way they do it. So I think it's a lost art. Everybody wants to become an affiliate. Yeah, I can refer it. Can I get 10%? No, like that's not how this, in my opinion, that's not the right way to do it.
Yep. No, I couldn't agree with you more. And I forget the quote as to who said it, but it goes something like this. I'll probably butcher it a little bit, but it's, if you help thousands of people get what they want, you're going to have
Zig Ziglar.
More than Zig
Ziglar says, if you help enough people get what they want in life, you'll get what you want. That's Zig Ziglar.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, because I'm an ex-car guy. That's where I started my career, so I know Zig Ziglar. Like that was one I was scripting, but it's so true. It's so true, man. Like,
I love it. That's so good. Chris, for somebody who lives their life in ownership, what would you say is your definition in a word or a phrase of ownership?
Oh gosh, I didn't get this, Cliff. I didn't get to study for this one.
I never did this one out.
For what I believe ownership is.
Yes, word or a phrase.
I mean, the word's accountability. Accountability. I mean, and that's accountability in everything that you do. Like, so I'm accountability with my health when I do the stuff I'm supposed to do. When I was at the gym this morning with my trainer and I ate the right things this morning, I'm accountable to myself with that. But I'm also accountable to my family because I need to be healthier longer because I have a brand new son. Like, I need to live to be 100 so he gets to enjoy his dad. So I think it's when to own it, you really have to be accountable in different categories of your life and understand the accountability is not just to you, it's to the people you care about. So
good. I love it. I love it. Where can people find your book, Chris? I know it's coming out today. It's literally dropping. If you're on our email list, you're going to be getting an email next Wednesday, kind of outlining some of these things and some of the cool things that Chris has going on with One Jordan. But where can people find it? Where can people get access to it?
So Amazon,
and really dive in.
Amazon's probably the best place to get it. Barnes and Noble's going to have it out in a couple weeks. But Amazon's where we're releasing everything tonight. You can always go to chriswelton.live, and that's my website. There'll be a spot in there. You can buy the book and subscribe to my podcast and see whatever, everything else that I have going on.
So good. I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. Chris, it's been so great having you on, and I love your heart. I love your mission, and just such a blessing.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you. Guys,
as you go forward, I really encourage you to go pick up a couple of copies of One Jordan, send it to some people, connect with some people that you've met. Like, you know what? I've been meaning to connect with you. I've been meaning to dive in with you. And maybe you're in a season of your life where you've lost touch with everyone. Maybe if you're in a season of life where you've gone through some hard times and you've felt like you need to isolate, you felt like you need to step backwards. I challenge you is, who is that CJ in your life? Who is that CJ in your life that needs to call you out? Who do you need to look into and say, hey, man, am I doing the best that I can with what I've been given? Am I doing the best I can with what I've been blessed with? Is there more for me? Is there another opportunity that I can step into? And ultimately, have I started to just settle for what it is that I think I deserve? Have I just started to settle with what it is that I think I've been blessed with? But actually, how can I lean in and how can I grow this thing? How can I steward this thing? How can I go after what it is that's already been prepared for me, but realizing that I ultimately have to start preparing myself, because what you've been called for is greater than what you're praying for, but what you're praying for, you're just not yet prepared for. And so you have to be able to dive in, because we know that your different is in you for a reason. And what do we always say? Success is different. So own your different. And we'll see you guys next week.